Thank you. Thank you. Well, Baba's makes us friends in him, and that's forever. It's at this point in my life, I look around and realize, boy, Baba is so compassionate to give Christopher and I so many wonderful people who love him so much, because that's to be with people who love him is now all we want to do. I mean, we have to be with other people and we have to be nice to them. But but you know, uh, Baba's family is really our family. So, well, thank you all for coming, and so privileged to talk on the eve of Silence Day. And so let me start with a few lines from Rumi, who always says things better than I can say. Uh, He says, the beloved is here. The soul of souls is here and never left. It's our eyes that come and go. Be silent now. Let silence speak. Surrender the syllables you count on your fingers. The river of countless messages is here. Well, 100 years. Huh. I guess it's human nature that we want to mark or celebrate milestones, 100 years, 50 years, and all that. It's just our nature. And that is, it doesn't matter whether we have any idea of the meaning or not of the of the occasion. It just sounds like something you should celebrate 100 years. And one would think, and maybe Angela had this in mind, that the 100th anniversary of Mayor Baba's silence should be an occasion for, new explanations or insights, into Avatar Mayor Baba's years of silence. Well, sorry to disappoint, but I got nothing. I mean, really speaking, what do I know about this? Uh, After all these years with Baba, less and less. I know less and less. So, what to do? And I thought, Christopher pointed this out to me a while ago, and it stuck with me as being really helpful. That is what Ali Shah said. And I think everyone on this Zoom, but maybe not, but a few maybe tomorrow who look may not know he was one of Baba's favorite musts, and he was fifth plane, according to Baba. Very sweet-natured, joyful must. You know, Baba sat with him for hours and days and even months, over many years. He was very important in Baba's work. Anyway, uh, Donkin reports in the Wayfarers that Ali Shah would repeat over and over again in his very gentle, sweet voice, variations of the verb to speak. And Donkin says that the phrase that he would repeat over and over again can be roughly translated something like, uh, he was speaking. He began to speak. He actually spoke. And that's about it. So thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Just kidding. Well, I love to say that, but I'm going to go on, but that's really all one can say is whatever that means. From Ali Shah, that's how I feel. So 100 years. And then the thing about today and talking with you all, I realized that I have actually been with Baba for 68 of those 100 years. Now that's old, right? 68 out of 100. And I just couldn't, my mind just couldn't wrap. Some of you may be approaching those those numbers as well. But that's, just stunned me. 68 years out of 100. And when I was much younger, when I was growing up and teenager, um, Silence Day was always a very special day, you know, because my family, my mother Jane, Wendy, we would get to spend it with Elizabeth and Kitty and Margaret. It being summertime, Margaret was there in Myrtle Beach, and she stayed at the Patricia Inn, and when Elizabeth lived in Del Ruba, I mean, excuse me, lived in Yupon Dunes, and then and later she would be in Del Ruba. Anyway, she would be there, which is a great treat. So first at Yupon Dunes and then in Del Ruba, we would have Silence Day with I'm just going to assume everyone listening, even tomorrow, will know Elizabeth Patterson, the founder of Mayher Center. But nowadays, if it's going to be viewed by other folks, I should say, and then Kitty Davy, one of Baba's early disciples, who lived in India with Baba for almost 20 years, and Margaret Krask, who was uh, also lived with Baba many years in India, but was a great ballet teacher and disciple of Baba's. These were three very early Western women disciples who played, as all of you on today know, a very key role in Baba's work in the West. Anyway, we would spend the day with them. I mean, all of that history we did not did not weigh us down. I mean, that wasn't something we thought too much about, and or at least I didn't. And but looking back, I realized, wow, what an extraordinary thing to have all of those people who spent so much time with him, in the room at the same time. So what we would do, well, let me just say this too. By the time I knew Elizabeth, Margaret, Kitty, I would describe them as living and breathing Baba. Really, only Baba. I mean, by that time, that's who they were in my experience. And yet, of course, each one had a very definite personality, different from the other, and vibrant personalities and character traits. They were very particular people. Baba didn't take away any of that. What he did was transform them to be transparent to him and to think only of him, and then he would use all of those characteristics for his work. You know, Margaret's humor, Elizabeth's business acumen, or Kitty's, way with children and people. I mean, all of these things that we experienced in these three women, Baba used, but by that time it wasn't. They were only breathing Baba. Yeah, and they were transparent to Baba, I would say, and and now I realize that being with them, Silence Day or any other time, was not very far removed from being with Baba, Mayor Baba, in his physical presence. I mean, it wasn't far removed. Um, at least that's my experience. So I feel very blessed that I had that opportunity. Now, uh, on the day before Silence Day every year, we would joke, we would tease each other about how many times we had broken the silence in the past, and who was going to break it this year, and how that was going to happen. And that would be kind of a fun thing to do before the day began. And we also had fun, predicting, which one would mess up the worst, and invariably, of course, everyone slipped up at least once. I don't know if that's happened to you. I think I don't know that I've ever gone a year without, when I've been silent, without slipping up, but so we had a wonderful time laughing about that. And now, actually, on Silence Day itself, in my memory anyway, I don't remember Margaret Krask ever making a sound on Silence Day. I could be wrong, but I don't remember that she ever slipped up. Um, but nevertheless, she would try during the day. We'd all be, in the same area, in the living room, on the porch, and she would try during the day to make Wendy and I break our silence by laughing. She'd make us laugh. And, she was very mischievous that way. And so I remember one particular year where we were sitting in the living room, Wendy and I, and she walked through the living room doing her camel imitation. Now, I don't know that her camel imitation has been recorded for posterity, but it was spot on. She would hump her body and then she would make a camel face. I can't do it, but it was just unbelievable. It looked like a camel. And then she would walk like a camel through the living room. And it was the first time I'd ever seen it. And I couldn't believe it. I started laughing. I couldn't help it. I started bursting out laughing. Then I realized I had already broken my silence. And she looked over at me and she smiled and just said, I got you, like that. I could tell. Um, Margaret. Barbara loved the fact Margaret would play practical jokes, and Baba loved practical jokes, and her humor was constant, like Baba's. Uh, now with Kitty, it was a little different. Kitty rarely slipped up, but when she did, it was usually involving whatever dog was there at the time. you know, because uh, she would say, oh no, you mustn't do that. Oh, you must come here, please come here. Oh, yes, like that. And I actually thought Kitty might have thought that speaking to an animal companion doesn't count as breaking silence because she couldn't help herself. And otherwise, I don't think she did, but the animals she did. And Elizabeth, Elizabeth was a woman of few words to begin with, right? I mean, she didn't, she was always, her words were always well chosen and, uh, and brief, concise, So it was not a difficulty for her maintaining silence. I mean, that's a state that she would prefer to speech any day, in any case. And but one year, I remember it finally got to her, right? And to understand what happened, you have to know that at that time, uh, the telephone was the center of the universe in Del Ruba. I mean, I do not exaggerate. That phone rang, whatever we were doing, eating, talking about Baba, it didn't matter. Visitors, Kitty or Elizabeth would answer the phone. I mean, it wasn't like it could be deferred. There was no answering machine, and they took it upon themselves to answer every call. Uh, I can't believe they did that, but that's what they did, and they felt it was their responsibility to Baba. And so, of course, when people call, for all kinds of reasons. I mean, just consider how many calls the gateway gets, and it's not as many people in those days, but for two older women to be constantly answering the phone. But Elizabeth Elizabeth got to the terrible point where and my mother used to just drive her crazy, and she tried to talk her out of it. She even put one on the dining room table. That's how bad it got. Fortunately, the day came when other people started answering the phone or phones, and that era left. But meanwhile, the phone rings and they would grab it, and sometimes both of them at the same time. So anyway, it's a silence day, and the phone rings, and Elizabeth, without thinking, grabs the receiver. She stares at it and she blurts out, "Oh, I'm very sorry. We can't speak right now. We're observing silence." And that was the year she finally broke her silence, you know. Uh, and then she hung up and she didn't look embarrassed at all. It just was the way it was. Um, Now, I don't recall that we, that means those wonderful women or my family, I don't think we ever had conversations about, you know, the meaning of Baba's silence, or, of course, there was no speculation about when Baba might break his silence or what that meant. I mean, that just wasn't part of how uh, life was around them. Yes, Baba was always sort of there in the air, but it was much more just in the moment about Baba. It wasn't, and it was rarely any discussion of theoretical ideas or thoughts about Baba. So that's just how it was. So I don't recall anything like that, and uh, we just um, shared in his presence, without talking about it. Not just on Silence Day, but really every day around them. It was just whatever they did naturally. I'm trying to say whatever they were doing naturally. Kitty in the kitchen, or Elizabeth uh, in her room working on papers or whatever. Whatever they were doing, it just it felt like we were with Baba, you know, because it's how they did what they did that communicated everything one needed to know about Baba. That's really how I learned what I know about Baba, is just being around people who always put Baba first and only lived for him. Never a I this or an I that. Never a thought for themselves. Not that they even tried. It just didn't happen. Now, as a child, I had a somewhat fraught relationship with Baba's silence. I mean, fraught, means, uh, you know, uh, well, let me just to say that when I first met Baba, which I think I've shared with everybody, um, crossed the threshold into Lagoon Cabin, went into his arms. I don't remember noticing, and nobody had told me much about him. I mean, he was from India, and people revered him. I mean, something was there, but mother didn't tell me much. So I don't remember them telling me that he was silent. They might have. I don't remember that. Anyway, I go in, and of course I brace Baba, and it's Baba, and I just he's so familiar to me immediately, and I must have on some level. I mean, I was 8 years old, almost 9, but on some level, I must have realized he was silent. I mean, you'd think a child of all people that'd be the first thing they'd notice, you know, or, the clothes he was wearing were different. Uh, but if I did it, I don't remember thinking that at all at the time. And why? Because I think it's because everything about Baba seemed like it was what it was supposed to be. That's Baba. That's how he is. I feel that conveys, but it wasn't, it wasn't odd. It was just who he was. It seemed so familiar. Everything seemed so familiar. And one couldn't imagine Baba being any other way. It's the only way I can put it. And I think others meeting Baba had this very similar experience. They may express it differently, but there's this familiarity and this sense of, yeah, that's Baba. That's it. No, yeah, that's how he is. That's how he is. And so I barely noticed, if I did at all, that he was silent. Now, of course, there was an interpreter. Erich was there. I mean, invisible to me. I didn't pay any attention to who was in the room, and I can't tell you today. I know my mother was there. I know Elizabeth was there. I know Erich was there, like that. But after I met Bob, I just, I don't have, I was not aware of anyone else. And I, the feeling I had was something like, and this is now how I would say it, was something like, uh, when I thought about it later, being with him, I thought, my feeling was, Baba is silence, and silence is Baba. That's my feeling. Now, of course, being a child, who immediately was in love with Baba. Just immediately overwhelmed. Children, clearly, everybody had a different experience, and because of what Baba gives what each person is supposed to get. Each person has their portion. Anyway, somehow he gave to me that I would be besotted with him from the first time I saw him. I mean, looking back, I realized I, that that's the most astonishing thing of all about that day. Uh, I just loved him so, and I didn't even know him. Um, so our communication, Bob and I, was silent. I'm a child, and of course, I didn't have questions to ask. Baba, with anyone he met, he would have, ask them about their lives, or this or that, how Baba was, and but with a child, no need. What would he ask? What would I say? And, and Baba liked it if one didn't have questions. So in that sense, I was fortunate to be a child because I didn't have any questions for Baba. I never did, actually. I don't now have any questions. So the way he communicated uh, with me would be a glance, a touch, an embrace, and and everything was communicated that way. But today I said, well, I'm going to count up how many times we did exchange any words at all, one way or the other, in 58 and 62 combined. I just thought, yes, I communicate with Baba in silence, but surely a number of times words were involved, and I counted up, not many words, but words were involved 7 times. That's what I came up with. 7 times. That's it. The rest of the time, it was all in silence. It was all in silence. It didn't feel like silence, but I found Baba very communicative, very expressive, uh, very tuned in to me, as a person, and um, and the fact that he didn't say anything I that I never occurred to me that that made any difference at all. Well, of course, when he left the center in 1958, you can imagine this child of 8, I missed him so much. Um, I I missed him so much, and uh, Elizabeth was very sweet, as always, and you know, she never missed a thing, and she knew what was happening to me, and so that's when I got my dog, Buff, the collie dog, that became so beloved, and Baba always sent Buff love, um, because Elizabeth knew uh, from her own experience what it what it would mean to be separate from him, and also um, how much a dog can help. You know, uh, yeah, how much a dog can help. So I missed him, and this is not talking about myself exactly, because we're talking about a child whose experience is Baba. Baba is this story. It's not my story exactly, but I was there, and what to say. But so I would wander around the center often, and I would be in tears. I I, I would look for him around every bend. I mean, I knew he wasn't there physically, but still, I just had this expectation. Um, at the same time, and I now look back, I realize that longing, that longing for him brought Baba very close. That's how I grew close to him, really. That's how I grew close. Baba was then, just as he is now, simultaneously present and absent. I think there's probably not a person on this call or this meeting that doesn't have similar experience of that, of life with Baba. He's present and he's absent at the same time. And the very absence is what brings the presence. And then the presence causes more longing and feeling of absence. That's how it seems to be. So 4 years, 4 very long years passed between that experience of him in 1958 and seeing him again in 62. Nowadays, you say, well, 4 years, how blessed you were to get a glimpse, much less, get to see him twice. So I know that, but I at the time, it was very painful. 4 years, every day, the phone would ring. I mean, this is literally true. We lived in New York, the phone ring, and I think, mother too, probably think, is this it? Are we getting no word that he's called us every day? Every phone ring, I had that thought. And finally, uh, and that also brought me closer to Baba. The kind of constant, uh, you know, being just anticipating being with him, as as well as being with him uh, every day, and in my heart. I mean, that's what brought me very close to Baba. So that's how I developed my Baba, right? My inner Baba was that way. That's how Baba works, isn't it? I mean, he withholds and he gives, withholds and gives, so that we just in our thirst for him, we just we have to think of him more and more. Um, so all that was a wonderful thing. You know, I didn't know it at the time, it's a wonderful thing, but it was. But two anxieties at that point began to gnaw at my heart. I'm a little embarrassed even to say it, but it seems so small now. But they did. I mean, I was, you know, what, 11, 12, and, you know, then 13. And so two anxieties. The first anxiety, which speaks to this anniversary, this day, was the fear that Baba would break his silence uh, before we could see him again. Now, I know that sounds odd, maybe, but that was a great anxiety for me as a young person. And so I would actually pray hard to Baba. In those days, I did these kinds of things. I prayed these things, and I prayed hard to Baba. You know, please, Baba, don't break your silence until we see you again. Don't do it, Baba. Why? Because my feeling was, well, when he breaks his silence and the whole world knows, or I don't know, thousands of people or millions of people, you know, whatever it is that, you know, how he described it seemed that way to me, that they would all, of course, flock to be around him, right? I mean, they would. And where would I be? You know, how could I be close like I was when he was at the center? I mean, you know, there were not that many people. And I pushed myself forward in the times I was allowed to be there. Unfortunately, you know, it wasn't, I had to go to school and stuff. I mean, it was, that was a sad part, but, but I pushed myself into the picture and, was close, got close, you know, I got to be near him as much as possible. But what happens if there are crowds and crowds of people? I couldn't imagine. So I had this anxiety that he would break his silence and it would all be over. The most selfish thing I can think of now, but there you are, you know. I think, you know, maybe Baba, the one thing we can be selfish about is Baba. That's how I feel. And so there we are. At least that's my excuse. Um, well, the second anxiety was the question in my heart and mind was, is the Baba that I have gotten to know inwardly, you know, in these 4 years, is that Baba? Baba. Is that Baba who is now living in India? In other words, was my Baba actually truly Baba? Now you might think, why would you think such a thing? I have no idea, except that um, my Baba was very particular to me, as he is to each of you, to each person who loves him. That's the way Baba treats us. We're as individuals, and it's very particular. It's not like anybody else's Baba, you know, really speaking. And but at that time, I had no context. It's just my anxiety was, you know, I had developed this whole, you know, relationship and feeling about him and then it sometimes would hit me. Yeah, but is that so? I mean, is that just something of I mean, I had confidence in my Baba, if you will, because I really felt him with me. But at the same time, is that the same? Or I just, I don't know if I'm conveying, but maybe you understand that how a tween, had this anxiety. Anyway, I did. And what a relief then when Baba did call us in 1962, finally, and we were invited to go and be there if we wanted to, the East-West Gathering. And that answered my first anxiety and my prayers, Baba hadn't broken his silence, and we could be close to him. Now, granted, there are going to be thousands and thousands of people coming for his darshan from India, but Baba and his compassion, treating the Westerners, because they come so far and all that, in this wonderful way. Every morning session would be just with the Westerners, and I'd forgotten the count. Was it 170 people? Something, I don't know. So, not more. The room was pretty full, but not packed, and that was it. Now that's a small number of people comparatively, right? So, and I, being aggressive about it, always pushed my way. If I didn't arrive first and is at the door first, I would manage to get all the way up and sit next to Bob, which was just, bliss. I mean, people were sitting all the way in the back. Not everybody could be there, but many of them didn't. It wasn't the same dynamic for them. People didn't all have the same sort of reaction about being up close. It was just something I was deeply focused on. But my second anxiety, I came into my consciousness as the first day we had darshan with Baba. He called the women first, the only day he did this, Western women, to greet everybody, and they could be with the women mandali, which we couldn't be, and then, or at least with Mira, and then second session he had the Western men, and so that was the first time I saw Baba. I was going to see Baba at the East-West Gathering, and I'm standing on the veranda now with all the other men. We're lining up, and I'm so happy to be seeing Baba. I mean, I don't want to overshadow that, the joy, the anticipation after 4 years, but there was also this layer, of anxiety. Is it Baba that I know? Is it my Baba? What is it, who is it? Who is he? And after all, just unlike Margaret and Kitty and Elizabeth, I didn't live with Baba for years. I didn't see Baba except for very short times when I was 8 years old. What do I know? But I had lived with Baba for 4 years in my heart. So what about that? What Baba is that? So anyway, the line moves up towards the French doors, and the threshold across which one goes, and then you're in the big room. Baba's at the end of the room on the sofa waiting. People are lined up and they're getting embraced and greeted one by one. So everybody's patiently waiting their turn. And I'm out there, and I take off my shoes. We all take off our shoes, of course, and we're moving now towards I'm moving towards the threshold, and the threshold. As it turns out, the threshold of the rest of my life. So I reached that point, and that anxiety is there. The joy is also there. And I step over into the room, and then it hits me. This fragrance hits the fragrance, the fragrance. I mean, I call it fragrance, but it wasn't like, oh, I mean, perfume, smell. No, not really. I mean, it was a fragrance in a sense, but I can't say how you would describe what it smelled like. It was just the air was Baba. It was him, his. Maybe fragrance is not what it. That's how I always felt it was. His fragrance. When I when that whatever hits me, or I feel that, I know that's Baba. That's all I can say. I don't know. And I'm not sure who. This is just me or what, but that's how I feel. That's what I experience. And at the same time that it hit me, the fragrance is like stunned me really. Same as in 58. Same fragrance, you see. So at the same time that happens, I see uh, this hand in the air. You see, I couldn't see Baba because all these people in front, but I do see this hand go up uh, above the heads and well, high in the air. And I see it, and it's Baba's hand. And I know in that instant, it's Baba. It's my Baba, not just Baba. It's my Baba. I don't know what that means, to this day, but that's was my experience. It's my Baba. And I'm always grateful that in that 13-year-old, there was this anxiety because um, it was the beginning of my conviction that my Baba is Baba. My Baba will change because Baba changes himself in us. He reveals more of himself. But that's Baba, not what people say he is, as wonderful as that is, not what the Mandali say, as great a resource as that has been in my life, not the tomb or Baba's house as amazing clues to him as they are, and all that, and certainly not his discourses. They're all provisional because when he comes again, he'll give different ones. But they're helpful, but they're not Baba. And I, in a way, the most challenging moments in my life have been people questioning me, or even questioning myself. Am I is Baba directing this? Am I just getting this wrong? Am I just, like they say, cafeteria Catholic, you pick and choose the teachings and stuff, which is what one hears in the Baba community, much less in the world. You know, well, you don't think this because you don't like it, but then you like this, and I've come to realize with Baba, no, my Baba is not everyone's Baba. It isn't the final experience of Baba. That comes when he gives it. But it is the ground of life with him for me. It is what I go back to. And if everyone in the world says that's not Mayor Baba, it doesn't matter. It is. And I try to remember this for other people. Oh, how, if the thought comes in my ego mind, oh, how can that person, oh, they say they love Baba, but look at this and look at that. What ignorance that is. I have no idea. It's so hard to let go of that. That there's something that people should be or conform to or believe or do. And believe me, as a gay man with Baba, this is a big issue in one's life. It has been. And for Christopher as well. Big issue. Especially in my era growing up, you can't be possibly following Baba and doing that or being that. Well, okay. And then I'm not following your Baba. Fine. I'll follow mine. How's that? Now, that's the greatness of Baba. Elizabeth, you say, everyone will try to limit Baba, Charles. Remember this. But no one can limit Baba. Can Baba treat each one differently, each one individually, and it still be coherent? No, not if you're making a religion out of it, it can't. Unless you're Quaker, that's the closest you get to that, but no. But if you are the lover of the beloved, and he has called you to be that, then he is giving you, the way to him that's only for you. And no one else thinks it's Baba, makes no difference. Okay. So that's how Baba rid me of that anxiety and the beginning of relying on what he gives us inside, not sort of saying, oh, I'm unworthy. How could he possibly give that to me? Oh, that doesn't matter. Bob, nobody's worthy. Mara maybe comes the closest to being worthy, but nobody is worthy. Well, now, naturally, after Baba drops his body in 1969, leaves his body, physical body, the question is there. When would Baba break his silence, or did he break his silence, or and all that? And I moved to that because this is something that each of us can experience an answer with Baba in ourselves. That's why there's no one answer to this or anything else about Baba. Because the authority, if you will, if you want to call it authority, the authority in our lives is Baba. In our conscience, in our hearts. That's the authority. And it's not unerring. It's just very reliable. And he will change it and make it something else and more reliable as life goes on with him. That's up to him. Now, as far as I know, no one in 1958 or 1962, my two little times with Baba and when he was in human form, no one brought up the question of when Baba would break his silence. No one mentioned it. No one talked about it. I don't think anyone cared about it particularly, except for one person, Meher Baba. He was the one. I mean, we had Baba. What is it that whether he breaks his silence or doesn't, it was wonderful and so forth. But you know, when and how, I don't know, we just didn't think of it. I mean, I grew up with two of his dearest disciples in his circle. Well, three, if you count my mother. She was very close to Baba and her, you know, in his circle, Baba said. So yeah, three, you know, a lot. I spent a lot of time, and um, you know, not one word about this. But Baba brought it up. Baba cared. Baba was interested in this. And you say, well, you know, I mean, so that's extraordinary, really. I mean, uh, uh, when we were with Baba in 1962, I, I mean, I can remember that Baba brought this up any number of times and was so emphatic about it. I mean, so emphatic about it. Now, this is not new. He did this throughout his life. Ever since 100 years ago, he started his silence. There was always this uh, focus on the breaking of it, the giving of the word. Uh, and there was always the sense that it was going to be any time now. And then he would set, as you know, he would set this date and he would set that date. And they came and they went. And then he would do it again and again. On the last afternoon of the East-West Gathering, Baba said, this is the last of many things he said during that gathering. He said, I have to break my silence and give my word to the world. But I have not yet prepared to break my silence. I feel it will take a year's time to break my silence. I have been telling you all that I will break my silence next year. But now next year means next year. For the first time, I take responsibility of my own promise to you all. Again, were we saying, Baba, when are you going to break your silence? You know, you keep saying a year and then it doesn't happen. Nobody said that. Nobody thought that. Why would they think that? And I remember someone during the gathering, the one darshan one morning asked Baba something like, when he mentioned this again, uh, uh, Baba, you know, asked if you know people wanted him to break his silence, and so there were just sort of perplexed looks. You know, do we want him to break his silence? And so people would say different things, whatever you want, but but I don't think anyone had a really thought about it, right? And there were different responses. I don't remember what they were, but finally Baba said, all right, Baba said, whatever you think, I want you to want the breaking of my silence because I want it. So from that time on, I want Baba to break his silence because he wants it. Baba says, want what I want. I don't know what it means, but that's what he wants. And on one visit to India, in the 70s or whatever, early visit, I said to Erich, I mentioned this to Erich, about that I was, you know, trying to want what he wants in this matter. And Erich looked at me and he said, yeah, he says, me too, brother. Me too. You see, for them, for Erich, and Mondley people, if Baba set a time and a day, they took it very seriously, completely. And they prepared as though Baba would give the word definitely on that day and at that time. No question. And no matter how many times he did it and didn't do it, they still had that. Uh, Eric says, well, I, I said, well, how did you, accept it like that? He said, yeah. He said, Baba gave us the gift of conviction. Yeah, that's all. but I couldn't help but tweaking him a little bit about it. I said, well, come on, Eric, didn't this somehow, bother you? Say, Baba keeps setting dates and then he keeps, and then he doesn't do it and then he sets another date and all that. And Eric said, well, he said, what? He said, what can I say? He is the Lord after all. Yeah, whatever he says, yeah, we take it to be true. But then he added, yeah, now that you ask me though, I'll say to you, yeah, I felt sometimes, Baba, this is an embarrassment, Baba. This is an embarrassment. Because you see, I didn't like it that this would put Baba in a bad light with people. Yeah, I didn't like it. Why does Baba do that? And then people say, well, here's this Mayor Baba says he's going to do this, and he doesn't do it. And he does this over again. And, what is this Mayor Baba and all that? And so that's what Erich, you know, uh, that's why he said, yeah, so I wish maybe Baba would stop doing this, stop giving all the dates and all that. But he said, but what to do? That's how he worked. He cared nothing for the reaction of people of the world. It meant nothing to him. He told me on one occasion he asked Baba to stop his silence and start speaking again. I said, you asked Baba to do that? Yeah. He said, yeah. I said, Baba. This was when Baba gave up the alphabet board. And that was such a rough time for Erich and for everybody, particularly Erich, who then had to communicate what Baba wanted to communicate. But well, how was he to do that? And then of course the gestures come in there and all that. And Baba finally, after some days of no way to communicate, um, Baba finally gave gestures. You know that story. But at that time, Erich one day said to Baba, it's enough now. It's good. Silence. Yeah, you've done this now so long. But now, Baba, yeah, you don't, why not? Just now you can speak. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, you've done that. Yeah, whatever it is, but you can speak now, Baba. It would be so much easier, wouldn't it, Baba? Community. And yeah, and for us also. For us also, it's yeah, how do we, yeah, it's hard to know what to convey and all that. Yeah. So Bob, why don't you do it? Yeah, it's time now. Isn't it time now? This is how Eric could speak to him this way, but I'm not sure who else could possibly have have done it that way. But that's how it was their relationship. And and Baba said no. Baba said, something to the effect, you have no idea about my silence. Yeah, I must keep silent to give the word. Yeah, so there's, yeah. So yeah, what could we do? Because from their point of view, Baba wasn't made greater or lesser or anything else by silence or by fasting or by seclude. But it was, yeah, they knew it was his work, but it wasn't like that sort of made Baba into anything different. I mean, it's like, well, so why wouldn't I? Now time, he's older and all that, but no. On the contrary, Baba put himself through even more rigors as he got older, as he suffered even more than ever. And Baba would return, and Baba alone really would return again and again to this theme of the imminent breaking of his silence to release the word. You remember that the film, the 1967 film that Van Gustrom took. I know you all are very familiar with this beautiful film. My favorite film to watch. And as you remember, towards the end, Van Gustrom lets him, Baba, well, give what is your final message or whatever like this to the world. What would you say and all that? And Baba again, yeah, I will, I will definitely break my silence and give the word. And I'm paraphrasing, but it, and it will be very soon. This time, I mean it. It will be very soon. And Baba said, and he compared himself, if you remember, to the doctor who would tell his patients, you will be better in, uh, you know, uh, 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 6 weeks, right? And uh, but uh, the no, you'll be better in 2 weeks. I'm sorry, and knowing that they wouldn't be until 6 weeks, but the doctor wanted to give the patient, this sense of hope and sense of whatever. And Baba said he was like that. But now he says, and this I love this. Baba says, I was just saying, I think that when I froze, that Baba
Mhm.
again brought it up, and as you know in that film, and then you may remember in January of 1969, actually January 30th, he brought it up again. And Mani in the family letter describes the scene this way. She says, the day before Baba dropped the body, even while the movement of his fingers brought on a renewed spasm every time he moved his fingers. Baba told us, all this, all that I have been through all along has been a preparation for the word, for just the one word.
Hmm.
And with a quizzical smile, he added, just imagine. Just imagine. So with with so much emphasis by Baba on the breaking of his silence, is it any wonder that people have the questions, that they've had since he left the body? Questions to which there are really no answers available to the ego mind, right? But still people ask, did he give the word? Is he giving the word? Will he give the word? These are natural questions of the mind. But we know from Baba that they are illusory questions. Baba says we live in ignorance, and the ways of the avatar are beyond our comprehension. In truth, Baba says, there is no past, there is no present, and there is no future. Am I still being heard? I hope so.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, oh, good. And seen, because hope so. Can you still see me, everybody?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right. I'll just plow on because this computer. There's no past, no present, no future. There is only the eternal now. All that Baba did in his human form, therefore, is in the eternal now. As Elizabeth used to say often, Baba is in the now. So living in ignorance, we might say, Baba began his silence 100 years ago. We might say, Baba, he kept silence for 44 years. And then we might wonder, when will he break his silence and give the word as he promised? But when Baba gives us the grace to live in more and more in the present, we can enter his silence and experience each moment as his word of love. You may be familiar with the story that Charles Purdom records of that Ramju told him, an early disciple, that one day Baba called some of the Mandalis, this is early days in Meherabad, and he said, we're going to walk a great distance. Come with me. So they do. They walk a great distance, strenuous walking. And then when they get to this remote place, Baba says, now all of you stand in a circle about 50 yards or 50 feet from me and turn your backs to me. I'll be in the center of the circle. And when I clap, you're to turn around and I will break my silence. I will speak. And so they did. They turned their backs to Baba and all that. And then Baba clapped. And they whirl around. Baba doesn't say anything. And they say, Baba, Why didn't you speak? You said you were going to speak. And Baba said, don't you know? I am always speaking. Baba is never silent. Baba speaks his word of love continually. As Ali Shah used to repeat over and over again, he was speaking. He began to speak. He actually spoke. And at the same time, Baba is eternally silent. Because his word of love, he says, is given in silence. Silent are the words of my silence, Baba says. Silent is love, and the lover loves my silence and silently adores me in my silence. Rumi, let's go back to him. The beloved is here. The soul of souls is here and never left. It's our eyes that come and go. Be silent now. Let silence speak. Surrender the syllables you count on your fingers. The river of countless messages is here. Jai Baba.
Charles, I wonder if you want to take questions or.
Of course, anything you'd like is fine. Christopher, could you help me here? I just want to see if I can get the picture better than I got it. Okay. Yeah, no, anything you like.
I don't know that anybody does have it, but if
I
you.
do.
Oh,
May I?
Sure.
Can you hear me? I
Yes.
can't even tell. Okay.
Who's this?
My name is Mary Marino Strong. We haven't met in many years. Over the years, we only met a couple of times. But I just love your talks. What I wanted to say was, this is my recollection. Maybe it's different from anyone else's, but the first day of the 69 Darshan, this was the last group, the New York group. I recall Erich saying, you're bringing up the subject of people wondering if Baba broke his silence. I think he said that he felt Baba did, and that it was internal. And that's always been my feeling since. But can I say something else not related specifically to silence?
Yeah.
I was married to a wonderful man whose family, grandparents and parents started missions in South America, very evangelical. This is the right way. There's no other way. So he was not interested in any kind of religion. He actually came to the first Mehrana Sahavas with me, and the tent goes up and he's looking at the pandal. He's like, oh no, this is not so good. But when he became ill in his later years, your video, I think the title of it, As Baba Really Is, we watched that on the TV from YouTube, and he really liked it. And then he wanted to hear your stories. And then he was very open to hearing Baba's stories. And that was how his last days were spent. And Baba's presence was so beautiful. So you have been an incredible catalyst, I'm sure, for so many. I mean, I don't need to go on, but God bless you.
Thank you.
You have brought forth so much of Baba's love.
I'm very touched you'd share that with me, and I'm very grateful to Baba for that. I mean, That's all I ask Baba is to, give me the opportunity to share him and help me get out of the way enough so that he comes through. And so if and when that happens, all I can say is how grateful I am to Baba. Yeah.
And the rest of us. Thank you, Baba.
Thank you, Mary.
You did.
Other anybody else? I don't know if you know about raising your hand digitally. If you don't, you can just raise your hand and I'll look in the gallery and see if anybody else have a question? Let's see. Maybe you could speak up. What?
Charles, I just want to say thank you.
Of course.
Happy
Yeah.
Silence Day.
Thank you. Yeah. Who is this? I'm Mike.
Ruth.
Ruthie, the way that Chris, I mean, his computer, I can only, I don't see everybody anymore. I see myself, which is not great. But thank you, Ruthie. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles.
Hmm.
Jai
Mary.
Baba.
Yeah. Jai Baba. Uh,
We have Roseanne Wells. Is it possible, Roseanne, for you to show your video or?
Oh, yeah. Hold on.
That's all right.
Charles says it's okay.
Okay, whatever you like, that's fine. I don't know what
Hi,
to.
Charles.
Hi.
I was wondering if you could read that again and maybe cite where you found that Rumi quote. I would love to bring it to RT in a couple of
Sure.
weeks.
Sure. It's the last part of a beautiful poem. And let me could, let me get the book. Could you hand me that book, the Rumi?
Yes.
I think it's right there on my desk. No, there's a wonderful woman, scholar, artist, uh, and her name is Hela Liza Gafori, Gafori, and she now has two very thin volumes out of translations. This is Gold. The one I read is from Gold. And the reason I go into that is because she's Persian. She translates Rumi from the Persian. So there are lots of interesting and sometimes wonderful versions of Rumi. They're not translated from the Persian. They are, and sometimes there are variations, the poet's own editions, Coleman Barks and so forth. So and they've touched a lot of people. So I'm not saying that's not a good thing. But what I love about hers is that they're right from but she tries to get the music of Rumi. And, some of the more early literal translations, from the Persian are not very poetic or, but I find hers very beautifully poetic and of course I can't read the Persian, but this is how it feels. And this is from her volume Gold, and the last two paragraphs in it are the beloved is here, the soul of souls is here and never left. It's our eyes that come and go. Be silent now. Let silence speak. Surrender the syllables you count on your fingers. The river of countless messages is here. So I love that, but there's so many. There's a one-line poem in here that I remember very, very often in my daily life. And that is, Rumi says, when I am not. When I am not, I am. And that's, to me, that's everything about life with Baba. When I am not. When I am not, I am. And Baba kept coming back to over and over again that to love him is to love him, serve him, make him happy at the cost of your own happiness in others. And others. Love others, serve others, make others happy, even at the cost of your own happiness, because he resides in each one. And that's how we become I am not. You know, that's how we become I am, the true I am, is through doing that. Yeah, am I back?
You
Oh,
can see.
I can see better. Okay, there we go. Okay. Now I can see people. So anyway, that's I commend both of her volumes to you because you will never find, I think, more beautiful translations of Rumi than in her two volumes. And I hope that tomorrow, I know it will be a beautiful, beautiful day with Baba. A beautiful day with Baba in silence. Jai Baba.